First thing we're going to talk about is some algebra review. The great part about this class is you do not have to be good at algebra to be good at this course. We're not going to use a whole bunch of algebra, just a couple things, one of which we'll use right away and the other will come up later when we do derivatives. So we have this properties of exponents. We're going to need this to do derivatives. If you have x to the n times x to the m, do you remember what that means from algebra? If you multiply bases, you add exponents. So it'll be x to the n plus m. And if we do the opposite, what if we divide bases? X to the n divided by x to the m. Well, we're going to do the opposite up here as well. The opposite of addition is going to be subtraction. We're going to do n minus m. Our third property is if you have a power raised to a power. What does that mean? If you have a power raised to a power, what you really do is you multiply them. X to the n times m. And then these last two properties, unfortunately, they're the most easy to forget, I would say. Most people maybe remember at least one or two of these up here. But these two are easily forgettable because they're tough. But these two are going to be the ones that we use the most. So let's put a star on these. We're going to need these to do derivatives. So if you have the nth root of x to the m, when you see a root, you want to think of the new power is going to be a fraction. Root means it's going to be a fraction. So we have x, and we're going to have to make a fraction out of n and m. So how I remember which one goes in the top and which one goes in the bottom is the more powerful one gets to go up top. So my power m is going to be up top over my root n. So a couple of things to remember this. A root means fraction. It's going to rewrite to be a fraction. And the power goes on top. The more powerful one gets to go on the top. Root goes on bottom. And then our last property that we're going to use a lot for derivatives is 1 over x to the n. Just what happens when you have a power in the denominator? It becomes negative. Negative exponents belong in the denominator. So denominator means negative exponent. So the root means a fraction, and if it's in the denominator, that means it's negative. So let's do some practice with this down below. So first thing we have is x squared times x cubed. When bases are multiplied, you add the exponents. So it's going to be x to the 2 plus 3, which is x to the 5th. And our next one, if we have division, division means subtraction. So I'm going to do x, and I'm going to do the top minus the bottom. X to the 3 minus 6 is going to be x to the negative 3. Well, we have a negative exponent. Where do negative exponents belong? They belong in the denominator. 1 over x to the third. Normally we don't simplify in this class, but some of the questions on the quizzes and the tests are going to be multiple choice. And so if you had this answer, but they were all written in the denominator on a multiple choice, I'd want you to know that a negative exponent goes into the denominator. So it's 1 over x to the positive 3 when we rewrite it. Our next one is if we have the fourth root of x to the third. Well, a root means we're going to rewrite it as a fraction. So my power goes on top. So x to the 3 is the power in this one, over my root is 4. X to the 3/4. My last one is the hardest root to rewrite because the power is not written for us. First of all, if it's just a regular x, that really means x to the first. So let's write this out a little bit bigger over here. If the power is not written, it's really to the first power. And I don't expect you to do the side work once you have got it, but just to show you for this one, if it's just x, that means x to the 1. And what's the root when it's not written? The root is the second root. If it's a square root, that means the second root's this one, the hardest one to rewrite because the powers and the root aren't written for you like the last one. The 3 and the 4 aren't there. It's x to the first And the square root means the second root. So it'll rewrite to be x to the 1/2. So there's our review of property of exponents, and we're going to use that when we do derivatives.